I am personal trainer Yuji. Everyone, when you are training your back, what do you think about during your workout? Please take a moment to consider this. Whether it's the lat pull down, rowing, or any other back training exercise, what do you pay the most attention to while doing it? Well, when I usually instruct in my personal training sessions, I often work with people over 50 years old, and that's mostly the case in teaching people of that age group regarding back training. Almost everyone hits a wall. It's more like a problem arises. There are ways to do it better, but the issue is that people can't do it. Well, out of 10 people, maybe one or even half a person has no problems, while the rest definitely face issues. Strength training involves contracting and stretching the muscles, contracting and stretching. This is particularly relevant when doing back training. For example, when it comes to rowing, whether it's with a dumbbell or any other equipment, this applies to all back training. Right now, we have rowing with a dumbbell. It doesn't matter what exercise or form you use, but when training the back, there is the action of contracting and extending. Anyone can extend and open up, like in a lat pull down. Anyone can think to extend and actually do it, but the challenge lies in the contraction. It's about contraction. The issue that most people face is that they struggle with effective contraction. Well, there are many cases where individuals don't even realize it's a problem, but to be honest, they are not contracting well at all. Stretching is something that anyone can do easily. However, contracting is where the challenge lies. There are 5 patterns in which this contraction tends to escape. Today, I want to ensure that you don't fall into these 5 patterns of escaping contraction, so I will now outline them. First of all, when it comes to rowing, specifically dumbbell rowing, the first point is that it's often done using just the arms. When you use only the arms, it means that the back is not contracting at all. What we want is not this kind of movement, but to actually contract the back. The goal is to focus on contracting the back. It's not just about pulling with your arms to contract your back. Your torso needs to move in this way. The torso should take this shape, even if the pull comes from above. If the torso doesn't move in this manner, contraction won't happen. If you remain hunched over and only use your arms, then of course, there is no contraction at all. Therefore, it's not just about the arms. We need to change our way of thinking and our image of how to perform the exercise. When holding a dumbbell, it becomes important to focus on this. You should not have the image that you must lift the dumbbell. The dumbbell is just an accessory attached to it. The latissimus dorsi spreads out from the inside to the outer part, reaching up to the base of the arms. When you contract it according to the muscle fibers, it pulls from here to there. As it gets pulled, the base of the arms is also pulled, and ultimately, the dumbbell rises in sequence as a result. However, if the moment you hold it, the force suddenly comes from your fingertips and palm, it will turn into using your arms. Of course, it's not enough to just visualize lifting the dumbbell in your mind. You need to see yourself from behind, or from above or behind, and first imagine how the back muscles are contracting. After visualizing that image, you should then think about how the roots of your arms are being pulled. It's essential to follow that order and visualize that image. So, just looking at the dumbbell in the mirror in front of you and imagining it going up is honestly not that important. What matters is whether you can visualize in your mind the back muscles contracting tightly and then stretching out. This is the first important step. And from there, the order of what you listen to should start with creating that image. The second point is that the load can escape, and the pattern is that when you are doing it, your upper body rises. Your upper body rises. The reason this can be lifted is due to 2 causes. The first is that it is lifted without contraction. It's somewhat like a chicken and egg situation. Because there is no contraction, the dumbbell doesn't come up on its own, and you have to lift the whole thing. As a result, the whole thing goes up, and the dumbbell is lifted, but there is no contraction happening. And honestly, you can't lift that dumbbell without it. Just look at this. Look at my explanation and see my shoulder. From this position to that position, I can lift several centimeters. I tend to move quite a bit. Even so, it's about 10 cm. If this is 10 cm, then the dumbbell should also move 10 cm. If your body doesn't contract well to that extent, there's no need to lift it any higher. Moving 5 cm or 6 cm is perfectly fine. If you try to do more than that, it will just go up. Well, you have to focus on repairing the muscles, where the muscle cells contract and contract and contract. It's about stubborn management. If you only come this far and don't progress, it becomes meaningless to move like this when you can only get a job up to this point. You need to practice this contraction every single time. Gradually, you'll be able to engage more and more. It's similar to stretching. Stretching doesn't happen overnight, but if you do it every day, you will see progress. Conversely, if you consistently perform the contraction exercises correctly, you will be able to contract properly over time, allowing you to achieve this kind of contraction. What I mean is that you shouldn't think about lifting more than you can contract right now. So, to prevent that, you should feel like you're pressing a board firmly against your upper back. It's like you're being held down by a board from above. While you go down, you should feel fixed and supported by the board from above. If you continue to do this as you feel, each time you will first be able to lift. However, you may not have the image of being able to control it. The third point is that when you are doing rowing, while your upper body is rising, your knees should not come forward. There are times when the knees move deeply with each repetition, and at first you might be struggling, but as you keep going, your knees start to move like this. Of course, the upper body will also rise. The shins tend to move forward too much. When this happens, the hips come forward, causing the upper body to rise, which prevents proper contraction. I want the knees to remain completely vertical without the shins moving forward at all. However, when you are tightening and putting in effort, if you are doing it in your own way, this effort can be defeated. If you are in a zero neutral state, this effort will lose. You can't be at zero. Being here is not a state of zero. It's already engaging the hamstrings. You need to keep pulling backward, or apply a force that feels like pulling slightly diagonally upward. By doing this, especially at the moment of pulling, you eliminate the force that pushes forward. Therefore, subtle adjustments are necessary. At the moment of pulling, it goes from 0 to a little bit, and then it strengthens up to 90. After that, it gradually weakens from 10 down to 9, 8, 7, 5, 3, 2, 1. Right? It's about the ability to listen. So, in order to match that, we need to adjust our strength and weakness in a subtle way, going from 1 to 2 to 3, and then from 10 to 1. When this gets stronger, this also needs to get stronger. And when this weakens, it should weaken as well. Otherwise, we can't establish a fixed position. Basically, please maintain a position where you are pulling and there is a slight tension. If you go to a position where there is no tension, like with the hamstring sling, your knees will be in a protruding state. Therefore, it is essential to always maintain this. When doing this exercise, make sure to apply a pulling force with your knees towards the back. It should be slightly diagonal. That's the fourth point. The fourth point is that when you are doing this, if your back is rounded, the latissimus dorsi will not contract at all. If your back is rounded, the latissimus dorsi will not contract. If your back remains rounded and you perform the exercise this way, you will only be using the teres major. While you may be using the teres major, the latissimus dorsi will not contract at all. There is a shape where you need to arch your back, and there is a movement where the shoulder blades come together, allowing the latissimus dorsi to fully engage. This is because there are areas that contract and areas that stretch. If you try to stretch without being able to contract, your back will become even more rounded. Therefore, you need to continuously strengthen the contraction. So, having a rounded back can sometimes mean that the spine is curved vertically. Therefore, it's important to do stretches to properly create a body that can maintain a straight posture, focusing on stretches that target the lower back and upper back. Developing flexibility is the first step. Additionally, when lying face down while doing the Superman exercise, it's crucial to create a strong contraction in the vertical spinal muscle. If this contraction isn't developed, the spinal muscles won't be able to contract properly, which leads to issues. If this continues, the latissimus dorsi won't be able to contract either. So, it's essential for the spinal muscles to contract properly. When you can contract tightly, the shoulder blades naturally come into play, allowing for a more effective contraction. First, it's important to create contraction awareness in the spine to avoid rounding. You need to build your body, and this is essential. Lastly, during this process, if you can't exhale, you can't breathe properly. When the muscles in your back, specifically the latissimus dorsi, contract, you should exhale, and when they stretch, you should inhale. You exhale when they contract and inhale when they stretch. This rule applies to all muscle groups, including the pectorals, where you exhale when they contract and inhale when they stretch. It's essential to understand this rule first. Even if you know how to do it, there are times when you can't. The reason you can't is simply because your abdominal muscles are weak. When you need to maintain a stable posture like this, if you want to engage your back even more, the opposing muscles, which are your abdominal muscles, come into play. If you don't contract the opposing muscles while trying to shorten your back, you can't stabilize your body. This lack of stability can cause your body to rise like this. But anyway, when you exhale while closing, it means that if you tighten your abdomen, your throat will relax. People who cannot tighten their abdomen tend to stiffen their throat. When doing this, you should close here. But keep your throat relaxed. This is essential. This principle applies to other exercises as well. For example, when doing the shoulder press, you tighten your abdomen, but keep your throat relaxed while exhaling. If this area doesn't close, your throat will become tense. You need to keep your stomach tight. So, in your mind, visualize contracting your back. I mentioned that you should have the image of contracting the latissimus dorsi, but you also need to simultaneously visualize making your stomach like a small tube. While holding both images of tightening your stomach and contracting your back, you should do this without straining. Focus on solidifying just your stomach, tightening it even more. To be able to wear it naturally, it's important to exhale. When tightening, you need to exhale and engage your core. To effectively exhale and tighten, you must strengthen your abdominal muscles. This is necessary for back training. Additionally, to prevent the contraction from escaping, flexibility is also required, and you need to prepare for the spinal technique to contract as well as the preparation to strengthen your abdominal muscles. It's all about that image, right? Yes, by visualizing the back contracting from behind, you also need to imagine pulling from the back while doing so. Well, the image I just mentioned is not about lifting a dumbbell. That's actually the very last part. If you have the right images in mind and execute them properly, your form won't break down, and you can smoothly close while exhaling. So first, there are 5 patterns where contraction can escape. I want you to avoid doing 5 things. That is the preparation you should do beforehand. This is also necessary, especially for those over 50, as the back tends to become slouched even when standing, which looks unattractive. To create a well-defined and broad back, please try to avoid the patterns we've discussed so far. Let's do our best together. Please subscribe to the channel as well. I'm waiting for you to follow me on Instagram. This is personal trainer YUJI.